Welcome to this episode of the Yahweh Vlog. I'm your host, Craig Wen. I have done my best to ignore what has been an exceedingly bitter experience by a woman who is clinically diagnosed as a psychopath, who was once involved in support of the Yada Yah series of books, Yada Yah website, and what was at the time Yada Yah radio. She found her way into my company because she was part of a conspiracy cult that obviously she never left. And there was a brief period of time where she appeared to befriend my wife, only to turn on her multiple times, rob her, and then try to trash my wife's reputation. This is the most reprehensible person I may have ever known in my life. And I've known a lot of reprehensible people. This is an individual who I did more for than anyone in her life, by her own admission. When she claimed that her life was miserable and that she said that everyone thought she was stupid and that she was hated by her parents, by her step-parents, by her children, by her husband, by everyone that had ever met her, I tried to help her. When she clung to the mythology of conspiracy, I tried to draw her out of it. When she claimed that she was broke and she needed money to leave her husband because her husband was beating her, my wife and I provided many, many thousands of dollars. Turns out it wasn't true. When we had her manage media for the Yada Yahweh message, we gave her many thousands of dollars and saw nothing for it. And she, all the while, was positioning people, as psychopaths do, to reject everything that they had learned and benefited from me, which I had given freely over the previous 10 to 15 years. All luring them in for her self-aggrandizement. And then as the victimizer, there's the person that had been treated better than she had ever been treated in her life.
By any man.
And by, no man had ever treated her better in her entire life. I mean, no one even close. And the things she provided was not just to turn on me, not just to lure people who were important to me away, but then spend the next year of her life trying to trash me.
Slander.
I wouldn't have a word to say about her if she hadn't created sites that are specifically designed to trash the 24 years of work that comprise the 35 books under Yada Yahweh. Oh, but she has. She actually has a site specifically designed to trash my books. Books that she learned everything that she knows about God from. And that site exists to repudiate me personally and my wife.
Worse yet, she slanders Yahweh's name.
She has done every manner of horrible things to me, to my wife, to covenant members, To those she lured into her cult, depriving them of everything that should matter just for her own self-aggrandizement, so she could rip them off as well. And my preference was to ignore her, to ignore them.
As was mine.
But unfortunately, they won't go away. They continue to double down. They continue to post absolute rubbish on their site. They get their jollies out of tearing my reputation apart.
And Yahweh's. And Dode's.
Fortunately, they're dumb as a stone. So they don't fool many people, but there are a lot of embittered people out there that cling to that kind of stuff, that lap it up like it's lemonade. I'll give you an idea. Over the last 2 or 3 days, I have pursued a series called Gabor. And in that series, we have gone through the 33rd, 34th, and 35th Mizmor, Psalms of Yahweh. We have deduced insights that have never been seen before, never been presented before. Even coming to hear that Yahweh said, there is a Goy who is going to show the way to the benefits of the relationship, and that his God is Yahweh. You're looking at the first and only person to have done that. And then in the 35th, it's an overt denunciation of everything that this woman's cult has attempted. You see, my preference, as I've said, is to ignore them. Yahweh's is not. Now, while I don't back down from a fight, I'll never start one. Never started a fight in my life. Haven't started the fight with them. Wouldn't say a word about them if they'd just go away. But they won't. They can't. And they put their trash right in my face. They use my name, hashtagging it all over their condemning site, because anyone searching for me, they want to get to them. They want to poison the well. They want to destroy 24 years of work on behalf of Yahweh and his beloved son. Doesn't mean anything to them that they're destroying lives.
And she's been poisoning the well for a while.
But Yahweh and his beloved son Dode, who is the actual Messiah and Son of God, our Savior, are not as accommodating as I am. I'm not particularly fond of fools, and I don't suffer fools well. And if somebody wants to pick a fight in my face, I'll respond. But Yahweh and Dode, they are disgusted. And every time that these nincompoops come up with their next ploy, then God is right there with an answer. Let me give you the example I was going to give that began to share with you. Over the last few days, I have shared insights into Gabor. Dode is a Gabor. He is a confident and capable man. And as I was doing so, and I went through the 33rd, 34th, and 35th Mizmor, we came to one of the most insightful, prophetic passages that you will find anywhere in the Torah, Prophets, and Psalms. It is in 2 Samuel 6. And I presented it in a way that no one had previously considered, sharing how important it was for Dode as our king and returning king to properly position the Ark of the Covenant, not only in the city of Dode, but on top of the Temple Mount under the tent of the restoring witness. And how this process began with the cart, which is an unusual process for the movement of the Ark, to have been pulled by a bakar, a bull, and spoke to why that was important, because prophetically it will be this bull that ultimately repositions the Ark of the Covenant for Dode.
And only the bull.
And yes. And Dode did not respond well when a man whose name Yahweh changed to a woman's interfered, tried to grab hold of it for herself. He wanted to write himself into the story, you see. And Yahweh said, no, you're not going to do this. Very much like Yahweh responded to Miriam when Miriam said, we also speak for God. And God says, no, you don't. He says, it's as if your father spit in your face. You're now stricken with leprosy. You are estranged from this community. In fact, the most embittering experience of the Israelites is where Miriam was buried. It's called the Waters of Meribah, based on her name. God says, no, you don't. Now, in a very similar situation to that, we find this man turned into a woman just to fit the story, explaining why he changed his name to her name, trying to write himself into the story, herself in this case. I explained why that was the case. I explained why Dowd responded so negatively. He didn't understand the role of the bull. And then how Yahweh, and this is now Shamuel's account. Shamuel was a contemporary of Dowd. He was the great and the last of the great judges, and he was a prophet of the first order. And writing contemporaneously of the events, he explained that Dowd flat out didn't understand. And he said then, he had no clue how he was going to move the Ark of the Covenant into Jerusalem. And then Yahweh demonstrated his zeal for a man named Obed-Edom. Of course, God didn't explain why he loved Obed-Edom in that text, because it would be explained 300 years later by Yahweh through the prophet Yeshayah. Because Obed-Edom, the one who does the work from Edom, is the same as Edom, the one who comes from Edom in the 63rd chapter of Isaiah, who saves many, making the connection that few have made previously. One doesn't have to be introduced or explained because one explains the other. That's the whole purpose of Yahweh revealing prophecy over the long period of time. And I explained why it was that this was important, because Obed-Edom and the man from Edom, the same as that bull, plays a starring role in the end, positioning the Ark of the Covenant for Dowd, and as the bull is the one who is sacrificed on Teruah. This is the story of the Adam of Perah. It is the single most important prophetic event remaining in the lives of Israelites. That was pretty profound. And then I explained how using the Hebrew grammar effectively, Shamuel was able to explain in no uncertain terms that Yahweh educated Dowd, so he had understood exactly what was going on. And once Dowd did, he realized that he could trust Obed-Edom, his buddy, to move the Ark of the Covenant into its proper place. Obed-Edom clearly knew the proper protocol, had 8 men, 8 people assigned to the task, which is significant because 8 individuals play a starring role on Shabuah, Teruah, and throughout.
Where's that number again?
Throughout Sukkah, which of course is an 8-day celebration. Explained all of that, revealed all of it, and then showed how Dowd put on the breastplate, the ephod of the high priest, and how important it was, because this confirms that I was right when I was the first to recognize that when Dowd returns on Yom Kippurim, sunset on October 2nd, 2033, that his first order of business is to do what the Torah mandates on Kippurim, which is to anoint the mercy seat of the Ark of the Covenant, that he will do so as the high priest. I deduced that from Zechariah. And here now, in the presence of the Ark of the Covenant, Dowd is wearing the ephod of the high priest, confirming exactly that this is a dress rehearsal for what is to come.
And nothing else.
And nothing else. And you know why nothing else? Because we're headed back to the garden. And you know what they wore in the garden?
Nothing
nothing
else.
else. And it says that Dode was
Yeah.
comfortable being exposed in Yahweh's presence. He had nothing to hide. And how revealing that was. And then I showed how all of the trash talk by Dode's wife, Michal, questions everything, was embittered. It was disgusting. She overtly denied that Dode was the one that Yahweh had chosen, that he was not dignified or distinguished in his calling. She did exactly what this psychopath at the head of the mother goddess cult is doing to me. And since the whole story is embarrassing, there is no reason for it to have been included in Shamuel's very passionate presentation of this event, unless it was specifically for Yahweh to say, here's the ammunition. She did it. She, like Chawa in the garden, is a reincarnation, if you will, a harbinger of the very woman that drives this rebellious cult that claims that there's a mommy God. Now, in response to that, it was, offered freely. You can go. There's 3 or 4 episodes. I think there's actually now, 10 episodes of Gabor, maybe 15. Quite a few.
Yep, quite a few.
You're invited to go to YouTube, X, Facebook, Rumble, TikTok, wherever, Instagram, wherever your favorite place is. They're all presented there. And what we found last night is that one of the flying monkeys of this cult decided that rather than say, wow, that is really an eye-opener, and now that I've seen how this woman embarrassed herself in the very same way that we are embarrassing ourselves towards you, and now that I have learned the connection here, and it was nice of you to make that connection between Obed-Edom of this story and the man from Edom in Yeshaya's prophecy, and how they both relate to Dode, how they both relate to the Ark of the Covenant, and how that bull is essential to the story, and therefore why Yahweh struck the man who became a woman down, who had interfered with his story, and how even Dode, the chosen one, the very son of God, made a mistake that he learned from, showing the manner that Yahweh likes to work. Boy, you did a lot of things in this presentation. I'm grateful. Thank you for sharing them. Nope. He said, I don't like it at all because I'm not going to deal with anything that's in 2 Samuel because, of course, it tears our whole cult to ribbons. I'm instead going to focus on the idea that, Dode knew that there were supposed to be 8 men carrying the ark. God didn't have to tell him. Well, the Chronicles account that was written 300 to 400 years later doesn't even spell Dode's name correctly. Rather than providing a passionate account of the events as Samuel saw them and reported them to us, focuses on details that, one of these days I'll go back into them because sometimes the details can be very telling. I'm not saying that they're untrue. It's just that there's no passion to the story as recorded in a truncated fashion over a number of chapters with the Chronicles. It doesn't contradict the story, as this individual was claiming. It just focuses on some details as opposed to the passionate events that drive it to the point of prophecy. And so I wanted to make a big deal about, there were 8 people, and Dode knew that had to happen. God made it very clear to him.
I think it's pretty clear to us now that the men that are with her, they all are effeminate.
Yeah. So why even bring it up, other than just to be irascible? And then 2 chapters later, there's an ode to genealogies that ties Obed-Edom, which is a name. When you say Edom, that means in most cases that someone who is either representing or a descendant of Esau. The man from Edom, of course, is one who tries to restore the birthright that was taken from him and restore the fractured family because Esau lost his birthright to Jacob. And so there is no question that he's in the same, discussion here. And it's important to know that and why God chose that name. But the fact that he's from Edom, he's presented in the genealogy as if he were a Lowy. And, maybe there's some interesting DNA studies that show that...
I can give you anecdotal evidence.
That
Ashkenazi Jews carry about 1.8% of R1b in our genetic data.
Which is my primary genealogy.
Haplogroup.
Does it? Yeah. So it is an interesting insight that this person wanted to say, well, then it negates the story that you told. And no, it doesn't. It's an interesting detail that can be pursued at some time, but it doesn't change any of the marvelous insights that were provided.
You know what it is? It's a bunch of male parrots parroting what the queen bee wants them to say.
So under those circumstances, under the fact that I'm constantly bombarded with friends that say, I search for your name at places, and because they're hashtagging your name to slander you.
It's called gang stalking.
Their sites come up before your even sites come up. That's how aggressive they have been in trying to destroy you. They're fixated on it. So come to find out, I was not very pleased with that. And come to find out, they're not very smart because what they say is easily undermined. So this is a series that is devoted to the mother goddess cult. Actually, this is Yahweh's response to the mother goddess cult. The embittered and rebellious, exceedingly irritating and vulgar. They're wholly unappreciative and equally ignorant, condescending and repugnant, ungodly and delusional, hypocrites of the mother goddess cult have now come out of the closet to expose and condemn themselves. They're little flying monkeys. Always have a fit. Says, we're not mother goddesses. How could you ever call us that? That's so unfair. Well, they came out of the closet. They acknowledged we're mother goddesses.
Mm-hmm. Oh, you're stupid.
They posted. Now, imagine the single most important discovery that I made along the way is to prove that Yahweh's name, YHWH, is pronounced Yahweh. And if you go to the first volume of An Introduction to God, here it is. It's free at yadaya.com in its entirely. You can also buy it at Amazon. This is the printed version from Amazon. An Introduction to God, which you'll find is an entire chapter devoted to the absolute and irrefutable proof that God's name is pronounced Yahweh. And they know it, and I introduced it to them. But they didn't want to, they wanted to be different. And so their first attempt was to make the name Yahweh, ignoring the sound of the wall. And I'm going to share with you what they had to convey in that regard, because it's so stupid. It's fitting for them. Now they have gone back to, and everyone in their cult has gone back to, WH or YHWH, as if we're going to turn back the clock.
Oh, they're reverts, huh?
Three better part of 3 millennia to the stupidity of no one knows how to pronounce the name.
Oh God.
They know for certain. And you can know for certain if you'll open and read An Introduction to God exactly how to pronounce Yahweh's name. But they nonetheless wrote it Yah, Yod, He, Wah-He, YHWH. It's not a name. Those are 4 letters. This name was pronounced. It is pronounceable. If you're going to do that, you're negating Yahweh's name. he wrote in the
That's
third
a
statement
crime.
that he etched in stone that is unforgivable.
That's
Now,
a crime.
in their case, it happens to be the least of their problems. YHWH is our Father. And then in all caps, screaming, and our mother.
Idiots.
No, God is not. Our
Definitely
acknowledgement of YHWH, not Yahweh,
Mas-
YHWH.
Masculine
When
singular.
you start playing with Yahweh's name, when you know better, that is an unforgivable crime.
That makes you.
That means that no matter what you do in the rest of your life, you cannot be included in the covenant. You cannot enter Shamaim.
You're
The
done.
best you can hope for, if you get to the point where God says, well, okay, they were obnoxious for a while, but they're not so troubling now, is to not be sent to Sheol. That is your greatest hope right now for what you've just done in Yahweh's name. Well, he is our Father and our mother. Our acknowledgement of YHWH as our Father does not take away from our acknowledgement of YHWH also as our mother, and vice versa. Oh, it sure as hell does. Your Father, if you think she is your mother, if you're going to negate his name, he will never forgive you.
Cook the goose on that one.
Screwed, blued, and tattooed.
Over. We are not fatherless. Oh, yes, you are. But rather embrace both of our creators. Both of our creators.
You're
That what is that line in that Yahweh says? I am
There is
Yahweh,
none
your
beside
God.
me. None.
I
None.
am one.
Had.
Every place that Yahweh references himself, he is singular. It is the, I would say, after the importance of his name, the next most important aspect of Yahweh is that he is one. Echad does not mean two. It means one. And to say otherwise is so repugnant,
Makes you a lot.
so ultimately ignorant, so irrational. It means that you're not doing this as a mistake. You're being deliberate in your attack on God.
And thus he will be deliberate on his attack on you.
And he has been, and you will hear his deliberate attack on those who attacked his name and his very essence in these programs. Both of our creators, our Elohim, our mighty ones, together as a family. We are
Said the
also
orphan.
not motherless. Well, of course, the mother goddess hates her mother. Her mother hates her.
Said the orphan. Yeah.
So the orphan claims that she is not motherless now.
Mhm.
And all the little women that she brought into her little groupie, they can all say, oh, we've been mothers, so that we can relate to this.
Mm.
Are you out of your mind?
Yes, they are.
When did you sell your soul for such tripe that you know not to be true? Then this is their post. YHWH with the YH in blue because he's the boy, and the WH in pink because, well, that's the girl. Then Elohim said, oh, it says, yeah, YHWH, the boy and the girl, is our father. That's the blue. And our mother, that's the pink.
They sound like goddamn liberals.
Then Elohim said, they're writing in English, but they threw in, well, Elohim. Don't you know how to translate? If you're going to present
Nope.
the word of God, why don't you present it in a language? You can say Elohim, but you have to translate it first. Let us, capital Us, make man in our image according to our likeness. So Elohim created the man in his image, and in the image of Elohim, he created him, male and female, he created them. Bereshith 126 and 127. To make that lie appear plausible, they had to change the text. They did what Yahweh did in the garden. What the hell? So what if God said this? I wanted to read like such and such.
Mm-hmm.
That ain't what it says.
Nope.
And they can't be that stupid. Well, maybe they are.
No,
But
they're
stupid
like Jews. They
doesn't-
just make it up.
When it comes to doing these kinds of things, particularly changing Yahweh's name,
Yeah.
Changing his reputation and identity,
Mhm.
God didn't carve out stupid as an excuse. You know, you
Nope.
can't say, okay, you got me. I made a mistake, but I was stupid. Yeah, it's not going to work. It's not
No,
an
because
excuse.
She knew.
Oh, but
She
I love my
knew.
mommy, or I want to have a mommy, and it's not going to work as an excuse. Oh, the next one for the blue now. For the blue, honor. Got kabed, and I think I shared a little kabed with our listeners yesterday, didn't I?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yes. It
Sure did.
was it not Mikkel, the one to be questioned, who
Who came
said
from
that,
the questionable?
Dode had no kabed. He had no credibility. He had no weightiness. He had no esteem. He wasn't worth anything. He had made up all of the claims about his relationship with Yahweh. He had
Mm.
imagined him. He had written himself into the story. He had no kabed. And guess what Dode said? Since you mentioned the concubines and you said that I didn't have any kabed, in the presence of the concubines, I want to return to the concubines and we'll decide if they think I have some kabed
Or not.
or not. Yeah, I would say that's my boy. It's my boy. So kabed, they chose that word, not knowing that Yahweh used that word to denounce them. And I shared that story.
Dum
Last
da dum dum
night,
dum.
and still they can't figure it out.
Dum da dum dum.
Intelligence is about making the proper connections between things to understand. And obviously they can't do that. Honor your father, capital Father, and your mother, capital Mother,
Ugh.
so that your
Ugh.
days may be prolonged in the land which WHYH, your Elohim, is giving you. Now, we're going to get to that statement. And we're going to make our way to it because it happens to be the second statement on the second tablet as we progress in this program. And God is going to do a marvelous job of denouncing everything that they claim. And this is, of course, Shamar Torah with the little b.
Mm.
All right.
A wasp, more like it.
Well, anyone with a functional brain and a rudimentary appreciation of Yahweh and his Torah guidance knows that this is inaccurate, it is unjustifiable, it's slanderous, and I would also add it's unforgivable. 'Cause God said
Delusional.
so. I have come to enjoy Yahweh's rebuttals to such an extent.
They're very satisfying.
He has the ultimate, as my wife just said, he is the ultimately satisfying
Yeah.
answer to nonsense.
Yeah.
God can
Cut through the BS.
can do an attack on nonsense better than anyone.
Oh,
He is really, really good at it. And boy,
And
in
nails
this
it
particular
down.
case, one of the great treasures of these nincompoops is that God predicted they would do what they're doing.
Mm.
And he created all these wonderful prophecies to denounce them, to expose and denounce them. And now we're able to go back and see them, and it's going, wow, this is
It's
this is
stunning.
really amazing the way you wove that into this story, and we're going to see that throughout. So come to find out, God doesn't much like the Mother Goddess cult.
No.
Or appreciate their misrepresentations
Absolutely.
of him, his son, his name, his covenant, his mikre,
Or the herald.
or his herald. Now, since the graphic post presented the malicious malcontents comprising a Mother Goddess cult, claiming that their creators, plural, were a mother and father, we'd be wise to consider how Yahweh introduced his role in our Genesis in the first line of the Torah. You don't have to go very far to figure this out. And when we do, we are left to ponder why Elohim is masculine and not pluralistic. More importantly, if Yahweh is a hermaphrodite, why is the verb bara created, presented in Bereshith Genesis 1:1, such that it's written in the third person masculine singular? Oops.
That's because she can't read Hebrew.
Oops. Since he is masculine singular, there could not have been two creators, with one being a woman.
Furthermore, hermaphroditism is a genetic mutation that is chromosomal in nature and is a defect. Yahweh isn't defective.
Yeah. A hermaphrodite can reproduce as a singular being and has both maternal and paternal, male and female characteristics. And so what they're ascribing to Yahweh is that he is a hermaphrodite.
Mm-hmm.
That's just the bottom line. That is what
kind of like the Greeks. Yeah.
That is what they're calling
She's
him.
very Greek.
So.
Yeah.
And by the way, there were a lot of gods back in the day.
A lot of them were hermaphrodites.
That were, in fact,
I
the
can list like 20.
most common depiction of it's Bahamut is the Bahamut is the primary Christian rendition of Satan, and Bahamut is a hermaphrodite, male and female characteristics, goatish, horned, that sort of thing, but hermaphrodite. So turning God into a hermaphrodite turns him into the long-standing presentation of Satan.
Nice job.
Oh, nice job. Nice job, girls.
Mm-hmm.
So Yahweh began with this: in, with, and among, even during and by. The beginning, from Reshith. He created. He conceived. Call, perfect, at that moment in time, actually. Third person, masculine, singular.
Oops.
You know, you don't get to change the language. The language of Revelation was written in Hebrew, and in Hebrew, the verb is scribed in the third person masculine singular.
Mm-hmm.
So you can't turn he into, well,
you can't be a liberal.
Let's play with pronouns. You know, what do we do? You know, and the transgender progressive world, you get to choose your programs. I'm it. I'm they.
Well, first of all, that's why Hashatan is going after gender identity, because it does matter.
Mm-hmm.
It does matter.
Yes. So in, with, and among, from ba, even during and by, the beginning, he created, he conceived, masculine singular, as God, Elohim, the plural of El, which is masculine, and it was written in the plural for any number of reasons. First, it was exceedingly common to convey the inclusive nature of things. You know, I will often say, if I wrote that, but I will say, we learned in this. And we use we a lot to try to be inclusive with our audience. It isn't to say we learned a lot and I'm schizophrenic and there's multiple me's. It's a relational,
it's a figure of speech,
conveyance of speech. Mm-hmm. And it is also designed to be inclusive, because Yahweh doesn't exist in the constraints of time that we understand. So one of the things we're learning is that Yahweh has a group of souls that he has woven throughout his story. They're called by different names. They're called by different titles, but it's essentially the same cast of characters that he runs through his story, because he knows that these individuals are willing to learn, they're willing to work, and most important, he can trust them. These are the things that didn't happen in the garden. They weren't willing to learn, they weren't willing to work, and they were not trustworthy. And God found a group of souls that says, yeah, whatever God says, I am willing to do it. I am here to do what God asks. I'm going to listen to him. I'm going to act accordingly and prove it reliably time and time again. Do not change his words, and follow and go where his words lead. And so he's very possibly even including them. And in this, it's a design to be inclusive. Okay, so in, with, and among, even during and by the beginning, he created as God that which pertains to the spiritual realms and that which pertains to the material realm. That's Bereshith, beginning, Genesis 1:1. Therefore, according to Yahweh, he is our creator. And he is masculine and singular. He said it with the first verb. Simple, direct, and
Honest.
irrefutable. And that means that the mother goddess cult protestations stating otherwise are so pathetic and irrational, it's a wonder they would admit to them, thereby condemn themselves through such an egregious deception, particularly when God is so emphatic that he is Echad, one. Although, now recognizing that the contributors to this MGC emerged from a conspiracy cult, they were already practiced at the artifice of twisting isolated statements without regard for the entirety of the evidence. That's how conspiracies work.
Yeah.
That is, after all, the mother's milk of conspiracy, as is attacking others in a futile attempt to resolve their inferiority issues in their own lives. Therefore, they would have the uninformed belief that they are valuable now because they are mommies. Maybe, just maybe, however, the better alternative might have been to have thought this through and not joined a pagan cult founded by a clinically diagnosed psychopath and condemn themselves in the process. Well, maybe, just maybe. Now, since Yahweh is so effective at refuting such nonsense, let's consider the evidence cited by the mother goddess cult, as they claim that their creators were comprised of a mother and a father. They cited Bereshith, Genesis 1:26, which is something I pointed out to them, better part of 15 to 20 years ago, to substantiate their dubious assertion. And yet the verb amar, said, was written in third person, masculine singular.
Oops.
That's not possible if we are to believe that there were two speakers and one was a mother.
God does not have a wife.
Further, why is bara, created, constantly written in the third person masculine singular if he's not he? Why is Teslem, image, masculine and not feminine or gender neutral? Why is the reference to the one conceived in his image a man, but not a woman?
I guess God just isn't a liberal.
Well, enough questions. Let's consider Yahweh's answers. Then he said, from Amar, he conveyed, called imperfect, third person, masculine, singular, as God, masculine. We will engage and make. We will act to conceive. Call imperfect, first person, plural. Man, Adam, a male, masculine, singular, in our image. And likeness, but in fewer dimensions. Ba teslem, aneknu, as a shadow of ourselves, masculine, singular. Akin to something similar to us, resembling a builder's draft or a sketch. Damuth, anaknu, an artistic representation with the sculpture, not God, represented by the feminine noun. They, and they was written in the masculine plural, they, as men, can choose to rule rada. As masculine individuals, they can direct, dominate, control, or subdue, manage, or govern. Called imperfect, jusive, third person, masculine, plural. By way of an increase in the sea, daga ha yam, because increase is feminine, singular, and sea is masculine, singular. with regard to that which flies about and flies away. Oath, flying to and fro. That one is feminine and masculine singular. She wanted to be a bird, right? Of the skies, of the atmospheres, masculine plural. And with regard to the beast, Bahime, a feminine animal. Oh, that one's feminine singular. They got that. You can be the beast. And with regard to all of the earth, and with regard to all of the creepy crawlies, the ha-remes, the creatures who creep about, who crawl about, who swarm, and who move around, ha-ramas, who slink and guide on the ground. Now, that part is part of what God said. And there wasn't an ellipsis in their statement. They made it sound like, well, that was a complete thought. And they pulled all of that I just read out of it, didn't they? Why would they do that? They think they're in a position to copy edit God. Are they the new rabbis? Are they playing the role of Paul?
Yes.
So he created, he conceived and brought into existence, yes, it's masculine singular, as God, which is masculine, that which pertains to the man. He created the man, male, individual, masculine person, in his image and likeness in fewer dimensions, with Teslam and Hugh being masculine. So as a shadow of himself, Teslam, image, and the pronoun Hugh are both masculine singular. In the image and likeness, again, Teslam, masculine singular, as the model of God. Masculine singular is the model of God. He created that which pertains to him. He conceived him. Called perfect, third person, masculine singular. Both the object and the subject of the verb. Masculine singular. A male and a memorable man, Zakar. This is interesting. This is not Adam. This is not Ish.
No.
This is a very unusual word for man. It's based on the verb zakar, which means to remember. And so if you want to take in its verbal root, which defines virtually every noun in Hebrew, it would be memorable man. So a male and a memorable man, masculine individual who remembers, reminds, and memorializes, and a woman to bore. This is not Isha.
This is Nakba.
Nakaba. Nakaba, a woman to bore, a female to perforate.
I wrote a song about that.
Nakab, you did. To pierce and to prick.
Yes.
Feminine singular. He created that which pertains to them, masculine, as in the men. Bara eth hem. He conceived them with the creator presented in the third person, masculine singular, and the created written in the third person, masculine plural. Doesn't fit their scenario, does it? In fact, it rips it apart. That's Bereshith, Genesis, the fullness of 126 and 127, cited as it now appears in the Torah. So in the statement that the Mother Goddess cult cited to demonstrate their point, there were 17 proofs provided by Yahweh to irrefutably demonstrate that they were wrong. From beginning to end, their chosen citation presents Yahweh as masculine singular, and it never wavers, it never varies from this reality throughout Bereshith and throughout the Torah and throughout the prophets.
That's right, kiddos.
Never.
She's as full of it. She's delusional.
Further.
Even their favorite translator can see through this ruse. ChatGTP, by the way.
Oh, of course. Further, the second to last sentence says that a masculine singular God created a masculine singular man in his image. It does not say that men and women were conceived in Yahweh's image.
Uh-oh.
Just man. End of debate. Yahweh wins again.
Mhm.
It's over.
Too bad, so sad.
You
for
played, you lost.
you. Mm.
Now, the final sentence then states that a masculine singular God created a Zakar, a memorable man, and a Nakaba, a woman to bore. It suggests that there would be something exceedingly memorable regarding men in God's story who would engage in a relationship with him. But it also suggests there would be a woman God would bore into, piercing right through her duplicity.
Mm. Imagine that.
Oops, that's a Nakaba.
Whoops.
Make of
Yeah.
all of that what you will.
Yep. Please do.
But there is no refuting that creating man in his image is one cohesive and complete thought, and that conceiving a man and a woman is another and unrelated to his image.
Again, God does not have a wife.
The Teslim of Yahweh is not being associated with the woman. Therefore, God, who presents himself as masculine singular, simply and directly stated that he created a masculine singular man in his masculine singular Teslim image,
Uh-oh.
thereby completely destroying the mother goddess theory. Time for the Ashri goddesses to go away and stop irritating Yahweh.
They will go away.
When you claim to speak, well, I could say, I was going to say speak for him and then lie, but they don't. They claim to speak for her.
Them.
And she doesn't, since she doesn't ever speak, then the only way they can speak for her is to regurgitate whatever the psychopath acting as the true mother goddess
Yeah.
wants
They just
to convey.
make it up.
Now, this is one of many times God has obliterated the claims of the mother goddess cult through his Torah guidance and with his Nabi prophets. The mother goddess cult is misrepresenting God by turning our father into a mother, thereby grossly misrepresenting Yahweh's nature.
And that's why he calls you vulgar.
Yeah. God is going to be emphatic as he describes the creation of man and the instructions to man and his relationship with man, and then his creation of woman for the man. And he's going to be explicit. You may not like what he has to say. You may say, that's not fair. I disagree. That's your prerogative. You can dislike what God says all you want. I wouldn't recommend it. But you're free to disagree with our creator. Say, no, I think you should have done it a different way. Well, maybe one day you'll get your own universe. Well, no, you won't, because you can't disagree with Yahweh and get off this planet. But, the extent that I'm going to disagree with Yahweh, I've acknowledged that I've lost this argument, and I only cling to it now because I like losing to Yahweh. I think it's kind of fun. I thought I could do a better job of the platypus, but the more we learn about the platypus, I've lost that argument, and so be it. But I'm not going to turn God into a hermaphrodite. So they have misrepresented God. Their deception is akin to the satanic deity Baphomet. I look at Rich on that one because Rich, when we were talking about this, immediately came to, well, that's Baphomet.
Exactly. When we first started talking about it, I'm like, this sounds really familiar.
You got been
the
seeing
weird
this,
shit I've read over my life.
Right.
Yeah. This is right.
Seeing this one before. Baphomet is the Gnostic idol. That would be the Greeks that claim to know it all with all of their pagan gods and goddesses. It's a Gnostic idol used by the Templars, which were Roman Catholics, and other occultists. The horned goat, Baphomet is a horned goat, was a hermaphrodite with a variation of its name becoming Muhammad, the messenger of Satan in the Quran. There is nothing funny about this, of course. It's really quite hellish. This is a serious crime with incarceration as the penalty. not death. It is unforgivable, yes, but it goes beyond that. And there is no hope for these wayward souls because theirs is a crime of commission, not omission. When they went so far as to open a website to condemn me and yada yada, and then change Yahweh's name, and then wrote such horrid things about God, they buried themselves. The best any of them can hope for now is that by relenting, their pre-Sheol recompense will be limited to the damage they have already done. But they don't listen to me, so they'll get a chance to listen to Dode's herald as Dode delegates from Yahweh the responsibility of judging. Well, I guess they'll listen to me then, won't they? Well, not yet finished nullifying and vilifying the mother goddess cult. Yahweh would like you to know that they lied once again when they opined that the 10 statements also validate their claims of a mother god. Now, so let's consider his instructions. What do you think the odds are of that, Leah?
0.
In this regard, from the beginning, because unlike what they did, we don't do that. When I began with Yahweh, he established some ground rules. And one of the ground rules was you don't ever just pluck something out of a narrative.
We call it quote mining.
It's called quote mining, cherry picking, because it is the very essence of how people deceive.
Yep.
And so I don't do that. I'm going to start at the beginning. And I think it's instructive to do so. And I think you will appreciate God's comprehensive denouncement and refutation as we make our way to this. Because there's a lot of wonderful insight. That is the beauty of this. There is a teaching moment. The reason I'm willing to do this is, well, multiple. One is that I work for Yahweh.
Mm-hmm.
If Yahweh presented a prophecy that pertains to something that is pertinent, I'm going to share it. I always do that. That he directs me to what he wants me to translate. I do so, and I share what I learn. That's just the way that we have worked for all of this time. But one of the reasons that God, and I've said this 24 years ago, one of the reasons that Yahweh is keen on providing prophecy isn't just to prove that he exists, which prophecy does, and prove that you can trust what he has revealed, which it does.
Yes.
But it also serves to educate us. You're going to find as we go into it that God was not the least bit happy with Adam and Chava. They bored him out of his mind. They were useless. And so it's Yahweh that actually caused the fall of man. And we're going to go into those statements because they're really relevant to this. And the antidote for that is listening to God, which they didn't do. Acting accordingly, which they didn't do.
No.
Learning so we can show our teacher that we're interested in what he's sharing with us and we're capable of growing. And then doing, acting, engaging, contributing, which they didn't do. And when we make a mistake, which God wrote the instructions such that we could make a mistake, learn from that mistake and grow from it and show that when we fall, we can get back up as opposed to run away and hide from our mistake.
I think they
Which is
have
what they did.
grown. I think they've grown Sheol.
Well, I
Yeah.
think they have. All right. So anyway, this is the purpose of God's teaching. It's the antidote for what went wrong in Gan Eden. And since we're headed back to Gan Eden, I want you to know it because the more you know, the more you can grow, the more prepared you can be, the more you can show Yahweh that you're trustworthy, that you're interesting, that you are worth his trust, that he will take you off of this planet and go explore the universe with you because he knows that you are going to listen to him. So this reads, and he conveyed. Starts off with he communicated. He spoke, he wrote, he provided instruction and direction. This is in the Peel Imperfect, ongoing consequences, going to affect the object of the statement. In the third person, masculine singular. So the subject, God, causes the object of these words to be effective, enabling and empowering them with ongoing and unfolding implications over time as a function of his will, in the third person, masculine singular, as God, plural of El, masculine, denoting a desire to be inclusive in early literature as well as the royal we of conversation. All of these statements using words in our presence, providing perspective by saying, this is Shemoth names, Exodus 21. I am, first person, singular. Yahweh, from the Hebrew vowels, Yod, He, Wah, He. And because I go to great lengths to explain exactly how you can be assured that that's the way to say it, don't need to belabor it here other than to say that Yahweh told Moshe that his name was based on the Hebrew verb haya, which he wrote in the first person, which means I am, I was, I will be. And haya tells you how to pronounce the ah, the he, and the yod. It's Hi Yah. So the first two letters in Yahweh's name would be Yah, Hi Yah. And the last letter in Yahweh's name would be Ah. He told us this, revealing this to Moshe in a book that we have wonderful copies of going back now 2,400 years. In fact, we even have a little silver scroll that takes this conversation all the way back 3,400 years to the time of the Exodus. So we know that this is a consistent and accurate rendering of God's name. It's written this way nearly 7,000 times in the extant documents that we have. And so we know that it's Yah and the Ah. But the book that he wrote it in, let's see, that is the
Torah.
Yeah, Torah, which is from the verb yara, and it means to teach, to guide, to direct, and to instruct. So if there were instructions, perhaps, on the proper pronunciation of Yahweh's name, you might find it in Torah, right? Where do you think you get the O sound from Torah?
From the Wah.
From the Wah. And what is the most commonly repeated greeting among Hebrews?
Shalom.
Where do you think you get the O sound in Shalom?
From the Wah.
From the Wah. There are hundreds of Hebrew words where the Wah is pronounced O. And that carries right through into English, where there are hundreds of English words where the W is pronounced as a vowel as the O sound. Own, owl, as examples of that. So it is clearly Yahweh. Now, as I've said in this volume, I give many, many hundreds of examples. I go through the entire Hebrew lexicon and demonstrate without any doubt that the proper pronunciation of God's name is Yahweh. All right, so I am, singular, Yahweh, your God, who relationally and beneficially, Asher, brought you out and delivered you from the realm of the crucibles of oppression, Mitzrayim, out of the house of slavery, Exodus, names Shemoth 22. You will not continue to exist. You will neither function nor move forward, live nor appear with anyone else's, a different, an extra, or an additional gods, like a mommy god, over, above, or around, elevated beyond or in addition to my presence, my appearance. Both Ani, my, and Panah are singular, and presence is masculine. Shemoth names, Exodus 23. another nail in the coffin of the mother goddess cult, pounded in by Yahweh. So Yahweh is not only God's one and only name, he continues to present himself as masculine and singular, and therefore not as a hermaphrodite or a father and mother. Adding ahar, another different or extra persona, whether masculine or female, to him nullifies one's existence. Thereby, the members of the mother goddess cult committed suicide by doing so. Yahweh gets even more specific in exposing and condemning the deceitful, destructive, deadly, and damning scheme of the mother goddesses by telling us that we should never associate a masculine object of worship with a feminine representation of something in the heavens, like a heavenly mother. Yahweh goes so far as to call what the mother goddess cult has done ma'al, adultery, guilt by being unfaithful, as a result of engaging in a relationship with another highly esteemed and venerated individual. God is obviously very good at finding and refuting numbskulls who misrepresent him. Listen in. You should not continue to associate yourself, engage or act doing something with or serving a religious image or masculine object of worship, a pesel, or any feminine representation, form, or image of something, a tamuna, which is in the heavenly or spiritual realms, because it is a violation of the standard and an act of adultery. It incurs guilt and shows unfaithfulness by engaging in a relationship with another individual perceived to be high and mighty, valued above others, nor which is as a result of the relationship is on the earth below, succeeding another, or which is in the waters beneath the land. Shemoth, Exodus 24. Now this instruction, while generally in opposition to religion, is specific of the crime committed by the mother goddess cult. They have come to associate themselves with the combination of a masculine object of veneration with a feminine representation associated with the spiritual realm. This is a violation of Yahweh's instructions and considered to be religious infidelity. Yahweh is such a brilliant communicator. If you listen closely, you're sure to find exquisite jewels in the midst of elucidating nomenclature. And in this case, the stone that God is tossing from his sling to topple the mother goddess cult is Chawa. It is the actionable representation of Adam's troublesome woman, a woman who wanted to become a goddess. Let's listen. So after saying you can't have a masculine and feminine object of worship, God says, because it's adultery, you should not speak about them or on your own initiative. You should not venerate them, nor initiate a practice of bowing down and worshiping them. Lo chawa, lahem.
There's your feminine right there.
Well, not only is chawa feminine because the verb and the name are written identically. Chawa is the name of the woman that Yahweh created for the benefit of Adam, that decided that she could change God's instructions as she saw fit because she wanted to be a goddess. Chawa is her name. This verb is chawa. It's negated. So it says, don't be like Chawa. You should not speak about them on your own initiative. Venerate them. Him, lahem is the them. Venerate them, or initiate a practice of bowing down and worshiping them. You should not continue to promote their message on your own accord or display their words, because such uncoerced and ongoing verbal declarations and announcements will influence you. Hitpael, imperfect, jussive, second person, masculine, singular. And you shall not habitually serve them nor compel anyone to be passionate about them, which is exactly what the Mother Goddess has done. Lobad, you should not continually work or labor in their cause or influence someone to make a career of working as their ministers. Hopeful, imperfect, second person, masculine, singular. For indeed, I, first person singular, Yahweh, as transliterated as directed in his Torah teaching regarding his Haya existence, your God. I am a fiercely protective, steadfastly loyal, and jealous God, Kana El, a God who is desirous of exclusivity in a deeply devoted relationship. El is masculine, singular. Actually counting and reckoning the perversity of twisting and distorting, the depravity of perverting and manipulating the masculine and feminine, and incurring resulting guilt of the women as parents. Both. Most people haven't noticed this. I happen to have a fact checker who I dearly love, who's actually written a paper on this subject, that there are a number of words that are exceedingly important for God to communicate something about, where the plural of a masculine word gets the feminine ending. So Ab is father, but the oath ending is feminine plural. The perversity of distorting of women as parents upon the children, concerning the third and fourth generations, or if I might change that, women acting as if they were men, concerning the third and fourth generations of those who actually dislike and shun me, of those who are openly hostile and averse to me being singular, literally striving maliciously against me, shunning me by refusing to engage in a relationship with me, singular. Call participle, serving as a literal and vivid depiction, as a verbal adjective with ane, me, being singular. Wow. That's a major wow, folks. Lo Chawa is a direct refutation of the Mother Goddess cult. It means don't be like Chawa, whose ambition was to become a goddess and to pretend to know more than Yada. That is such an interesting and pertinent story. At the conclusion of this initiation of the review, we're going to consider what actually occurred in the garden. I have rendered it all afresh and analyzed it, and I think you're going to be amazed with what we're going to learn. Well, Mother Goddesses are not. It's a wholesale repudiation of them, prophetic repudiation of them. You're going to find out why it's so applicable that Yahweh etched the verbal representation of Chawa's name in stone to refute the one who would be acting like her today, having learned nothing over the 6,000 years. Now, beyond this revealing, I would underline revealing connection between degenerating cults of personality and misrepresenting the testimony of God and satanic overtures, we find Yahweh pleading with us not to venerate any male or female form as a god or a goddess. Do not serve these reprehensible fabrications of one's imagination, or passionately plead with others to join in and be part of these ill-conceived schemes. Yahweh is fiercely protective of his reputation, and he does not want it sullied by false characterizations. That's what religion is for. From God's perspective, The notion of a mother god is perverse. It is a grotesque distortion and twisted manipulation of his testimony. It is Ashery, mother goddess, and worthy of condemnation and death. Further, please note the seldom considered anomaly as I shared in this portion of the text. Yahweh suffixed Ab, father, and the feminine plural, using oath, making father feminine plural, either as women acting as if they were men, as mothers acting as if they were fathers, someone blending the two of these things together, mothers and fathers, in this rebuke of those who venerate fraudulent male and female replacements of his actual nature. That is to say, turn a father into a mother, or pretend there are two when only one exists. Oops. This was a brilliant addition by Yahweh for two reasons in particular. First, he knew that, well, I would find it. Mike found it before I found it, but I didn't remember that he found it, in particular, this particular word, until he sent me the text after having done this translation. But it's there. It's easily affirmed. But I found it. I noted it. I understood the implications, and I have wielded it appropriately, which is to say that I have done as he expected. The world heretofore has read right through the blending of masculine and feminine only to see fathers, when the intent was to say mothers acting like fathers, confused over the proper roles of fathers and mothers, who would corrupt all who are influenced by them. Subtle yet sensational. So it's time for the mother goddess cult to crawl back into their hole, never to be seen or heard from again. And second, by making father feminine plural, God has completely eliminated any possibility of interpreting the fifth instruction such that it pertains to honoring the mothers who are being condemned here for their religious deceit. Also telling, Yahweh is equating the conception and the promotion of inappropriate male and female forms with maliciousness. Rather than demonstrating an affinity for him, devotion to him, or garnering respect regarding him, God says that these mothers are being overtly hostile toward him. The mother goddess cult is actually shunning Yahweh. God sees them as an adverse influence. Therefore, our Father will focus on his attention. Well, he's going to focus his attention on others. However, God begins, I will genuinely act and actually engage to literally prepare, perform, and produce. Ashah, I will actively affect and appoint, offer and celebrate, and I will demonstrate by doing what is required to deliver on behalf of those who respond. Call, participle, that's a verbal noun and should be understood literally, written in the masculine singular absolute. Loyal and devoted love, unfailing mercy, unearned favor, and genuine kindness on behalf of thousands who move toward me and who love me, and also who approach me by closely observing and carefully considering, who closely examine, call participle, my instructive conditions of the relationship, mitzvah. Shemoth, names, Exodus 26. Now, ladies and gentlemen, thousands amongst billions is one in a million. God's not looking for a crowd. To be among the fortunate few, the lone acceptable approach is to Ahab, to genuinely love Yahweh for who he is, and then approach by closely examining and carefully considering his mitzvah, the instructive conditions of the relationship. of these, there are 5 specified terms, all of which were initially delineated and presented within Yada Yahweh. Now, you may have noticed that the mother goddess cult changed Yahweh to Yahweh, and then they reverted to YHWH, with YH presented in powder blue to portray our Father, and WH colored in pinkish orange to represent our Mother. But it gets worse, because the MGC would litter their plagiarized and twisted versions of my translations and amplified presentation style with the following nonsense. You can bring this up, Rich, so that they can see firsthand what they have done. Yahweh, a pictorial of the family of Elohim, which includes Father, the Yod, the hand, as the strong arm executes directives and supports the efforts of Mother, the Wah, which is a tent peg, who expands and secures the family home with Torah teaching, instruction, direction, and guidance. And we're 2 old children, those are 2 old children, who by standing on their feet and reaching up to Father and Mother, become mature, empowered, and enabled individuals. Well, that is a plagiarized version of my copyrighted translation style. Everything that they did with it is wrong. And that's the worst thing of all. They are using a style that I invented to present amplified translations such that every word was verifiable. This is that style. To steal the style that I invented, that I used to write all of these books, 25,000 pages, and pilfer it, and then distort it for their own good or their own bad, is absolutely criminal and reprehensible. And they continue to do it. In this excerpt, violating my approach and copyrights. You wouldn't know that unless you read my books. But if you read my books, any of my books, you will know that I invented an entirely different way of presenting Yahweh's testimony in an amplified fashion, with the bold, the italics, the standard font, the parenthetical, the hyphen, all of it very, very unique. No one has ever done anything even remotely like it before, and they just pilfered it. It's disgusting. It's criminal. But beyond the fact that they breached my copyrights, passed themselves off if they were me, like Chawa coveting Yada and the tree. They claim that the Yod, the hand, represents the Father, didn't they? Do you know that Yod, hand, is feminine in Hebrew? Oops. But that wasn't the end of it. Then they said that the Wah, the peg to increase the size of the tent, was their mother. But guess what? Wah is masculine in Hebrew. Got them both wrong. Further, the letter He is derived from the masculine noun he, which means whoa. The letter is repeated in the verb haya, which serves as the basis of Yahweh's name, and it means to exist. Equally revealing, the letter depicted by a man standing up, looking up, pointing up, is defined by henna, which means to behold. And that is particularly telling, not only because it means to behold, to look up, to pay attention, and to be observant. it is written with a child placed between the two adult individuals. The two people standing up can't be the mother and father. All right, excuse me, can't be the children because the child is between them. They got that wrong too. Therefore, the Hays cannot be children, as the mother goddess cult protests. In other words, they got everything wrong. They were 0 for 4. Nicely done. The consequence of changing Yahweh Shem, by the way, which is also masculine singular, is as follows. You should not continue to deceive, nor should you ever tolerate or support delusions. Lo Nasha. You should not habitually deploy or advance clever tricks. Oh boy, was that ever an attempt at a clever trick. To enrich yourself by indebting others, which is exactly what they're doing. And you should avoid actually beguiling people. Oh, another one. On an ongoing basis, which is what they're doing, by consistently lifting up, promoting, or forgiving that which causes them to miss the way. Lo Nasha. Call imperfect, second person, masculine singular. Associated with the masculine name and reputation, Shem, the personal and proper designation, masculine singular of Yahweh, your God, thereby advancing worthless and lifeless depictions of futile vanities and worthless idolatry. For Yahweh, he will not forgive or leave unpunished as an ongoing admission unconstrained by time. He will not purify or pardon. He will not acquit or free from guilt. He will not exempt from judgment or sentencing. Peel imperfect, third person, masculine, singular. The one who consistently deceives, actually beguiles, and habitually deludes, promoting or accepting trickery so as to forget his name and his masculine singular reputation. Shem, Hugh. To advance and promote vain and ineffectual lies, which lead to lifelessness, nullifying one's existence, and vain futility. Shoah. Shemoth names, Exodus 27. Name, by the way, is another one of those that is interesting in the ending. Now, this is the essence of what the mother goddesses have done. Now, for their benefit, there are some people they lured in that I once held very dear. And I do not know, it's not my business to know at this point, whether or not they have contributed so much to this delusion and have contributed so much to the misrepresentation of Yada Yahweh, of Yada's purpose, of Yahweh's name, his character, that they've passed the point of no return or not. As for the mother goddess, she's done. For her primary accomplices that have been so active throughout the internet to promote their lies, they're done. But there's a possibility, I'm hoping there is, for others that are part of her cult that just were stupid. They took a stupid pill. Okay, they got played. Psychopaths are really good at playing people. They lied to them. They will tell them exactly the opposite of true. You know, a publisher, for example, there's no one other than my wife that I stood up for as much as I did her. Always had her back, always supported her, always cared for her. But I am certain the mother goddess told it exactly the opposite. When it was, in fact, that mother goddess who was always besmirching her, saying she's easy to control. I can manipulate her. She's not very smart. other words, she played her. Who knows why she fell for it, but she did. And maybe there's a way out for her. I hope there is. But this was written in the imperfect, which means that once you stop, there can be hope for you. But if you don't, there isn't. Well, Yahweh Shem is masculine singular, and it's not subject to a dualistic gender interpretation. Even worse for those destroying his Shem to advance their delusions, Yahweh stated that he will not forgive or leave unpunished. He will not forgive or leave unpunished. To forgive, not forgive, means that at the end of your mortal existence, your soul simply dissipates into nothingness. No reward, no penalty. You forfeited the opportunity to live in Shamayim. That's a shame. But that's it. Leave unpunished is another story. To never leave unpunished means that he must exact retribution, which means that your soul will be going to Sheol. That's how serious it is, this crime that the mother goddesses have committed. Nothing cute about it. They have used trickery to deceive and to beguile in association with Yahweh's name. He scribed the verb, condemning them in a masculine singular voice, nullifying their claims and obliterating their mythology. Now, continuing to negate the hermaphrodite designation, the Shabbat is for him, Hugh. Therefore, with this acknowledgement and noting that every verb attributed to Yahweh throughout was written by God himself as masculine singular, the mother goddesses are utterly delusional. We're reading from the tablets that were etched by God himself in stone. Ain't no wiggle room here. It begins. Remember the memorable man, Zakar, the representative of the Shabbat, this day which is set apart for him. Not her. Him. 6 days, you can actually and continuously work and act, engaging in everything associated with your malaka, a spiritual messenger. But in the 7th day, the Shabbat is to approach Yahweh, your God. You should not continually engage in any part of the work of the heavenly representative and spiritual messenger. It's from Malak, the ministry and mission of the heavenly envoy, the divine endeavors and labor of God's corporeal manifestation, or this individual representing him. Yourself, your son, your daughter, your female and male servants and staff, your means of production, as well as those visitors who relationally are in your home, property, or community. For indeed, in 6 days, Yahweh, he acted and engaged, preparing and producing everything associated with completing the heavens and the earth and the seas and all that is relationally in them. And he became completely settled and spiritually resolved during the Almighty's 7th day. Therefore, Yahweh, he blessed and adored. He knelt down and lowered himself to greet those he had created, and he did everything to lift them up. Masculine singular, this day, this Shabbat. And he set it apart for himself. While Kodeshu, he separated himself. As in Yahweh, or the day, from others, making him special, or it special. Yahweh presented himself as the subject of 4 verbs. And in every case, he wrote himself into his instructions in stone as masculine singular. Simply stated, there are no goddesses to be found on the 2 tablets Yahweh etched in stone. Now, this brings us to the inscription of the mother goddess cults, that the one that they misrepresented in their little placard of their mommy god, of our creators, plural, a father and a mother. However, you'll note that there is no designation of Shamaim, heavenly, or Ruach, spiritual, before Ab or M in this statement. You should choose to weigh, to view as worthy and valuable, significant and substantial, honorable and rewarding. Kabod. You of your own volition should elect to distinguish, to respect, to perceive as impressive and relevant, even enriching. It's written in the Peel stem, revealing that you cause this father to be seen as valuable. That's interesting. Your actions actually change the way this particular father is perceived. And in the imperative mood, which expresses second person volition. This is your choice. According to the symbolism of F, your father, and that which is represented by your mother, for the purpose of you continuously lengthening, arak, elongating, prolonging, Hiphil perfect, third person, masculine, plural, paragogic, none, your days upon or on account of the ground. Ha'adama. It's either the dirt or the bloody red man of the earth. Ha'adama. It's the man, ruddy red. The adjective is used to describe the para, the productive bull, that is the basis of Edom, further identifying the Adama para with the man from Edom, which is a benefit of the relationship, and who, as a blessing to show the way, Yahweh, your God, he is actually giving to you. He has literally produced and will provide and genuinely bestow freely to you as a gift. The mother goddess cultists would offer this as proof of their mother god. But that's not possible, because the only time God is mentioned, it is with a masculine title. And when Yahweh presents himself as the subject of the verb Nathan, giving, he wrote himself into his instruction as masculine singular. So it can't be as they claim, because in the verb Nathan, in the midst of this text, God identified himself as masculine singular, not as two and not as man and woman. Therefore, he is one and masculine. He cannot be two and feminine. The mother goddess cult has once again lost in the very place that they had intended to prevail. The Ab and M of this concluding statement are not identified. There is no mention of a heavenly before father or a spiritual before mother. Therefore, we must ascertain their identity is based upon the surrounding text. And in it, Yahweh says that as a result of weighing what pertains to them as worthy, one's days will be elongated on the ground. On the ground. He did not reference or promise eternal life in heaven as a result of your perceptions of these two people. And there is the implication that the gift Yahweh is offering comes by way of Ha'adama, the bloody red man of the earth, who God is providing to Asher, reveal the way to receive the benefits of the relationship. So as such, this may well be prophetic of how Yom Teruah will enable a return to the garden on Sukkah, something that God wove throughout his creation and garden narrative. Now, what we know for certain is that this instruction cannot be addressing our earthly parents, since the second statement revealed that they are corrupting their children, and they're doing so for generations. So since the women acting as if they were men and mothers acting as if they were fathers corrupt their children to the third and fourth generation, they can't be the ones who you would view as significant to lengthen your days on the ground. It cannot be our Heavenly Father either, since he does not prolong our mortal existence on earth, but instead provides eternal life in Shamayim for those who listen and respond appropriately to him. There is no reference to a spirit mom anywhere in the Torah, including the notion that this magically is referencing a non-existent persona. Now, this leaves us with two rational alternatives. The first is to see the father as Abraham and the mother of Sarah, because they are the father and the mother of the covenant. Sharing their narrative is central to the mission of Ha-Adamah, this bloody red man of the earth, who is the man from Edom. He is Yahweh's gift to the covenant family. The covenant is life. Moreover, inheriting, I should say, the land was specifically and repeatedly listed as a benefit of the covenant. So since inheriting the Adamah is a benefit of the covenant, you would increase the days on it if you show some regard for what Abraham and Sarah represent, as they are the conduit through which Yahweh conveyed the conditions and the benefits of the Bereth. Now, I happen to like that. That is my conclusion. One of women who has proven herself to be a stalwart within the covenant family, somebody that just everyone loves and recognizes her both insight and dependability. She's someone always willing to work, to do as needs to be done. She sent me a note, and much of what I'm going to convey here, she actually conveyed, and then I took it the next step. Recognizing that Yahweh layers his pronouncements, the second possibility, and this is from Mariah, is that we should value our role as parents and prioritize this aspect of our lives. This is not only consistent with Yahweh's role as our Ab Father and completely supportive of everything he is offering through his Bereth covenant family, now this is something that I added. The fifth instruction. Now, this is the fifth statement etched in stone. This fifth instruction harkens back to the fifth condition of the covenant. As parents, we are to circumcise our sons so that we remember to guide them toward the covenant. In fact, sons is even zakar, underscoring remembering. Circumcision is the sign of the covenant, because it is a parent's signature in vowing to raise their children to become part of Yahweh's family. Well, it's goodbye and good riddance. The mother goddess cult has condemned themselves. Yahweh just exposed them and excoriated them using the very texts that they cited. I have much more to share, and we will resume on our next program tomorrow morning, because we're going to return to the garden. We're going to explore why Yahweh wrote the actionable variation of Chawah's name into the second statement that he etched in stone regarding venerating a male and female object of worship. And when we do, I can assure you, you're going to be amazed at how effective God is at telling a story and providing insights that are literally profoundly important to our lives. So I'll hold that as an abeyance, as a teaser for our next program. I thank you for listening to this one. We will resume on the Mother Goddesses tomorrow morning. Thank you for listening.